All right, yesterday we read about Beowulf's final battle, and that we now pretty much know the outcome of that battle, even though the story isn't completely over yet. We are going to finish reading Beowulf today. Today is our last reading assignment for Beowulf. So let's just kind of review a little bit about what happened with the reading yesterday. We read parts 14 through 15, which represented Beowulf's final battle. And what we learned, I'm going to go to the online version. What we learned was that Beowulf, first of all, had become king of the Geats. We learned that this was all taking place 50 years after he fought Grendel and Grendel's mother. We learned that the villain that he actually has to fight in the final battle is a dragon, an actual dragon, who is destroying Beowulf's lands and the Geats' lands because he's angry at a thief who stole from him. So in order to protect his own people, Beowulf has to go out and fight this dragon. Now, we talked a little bit yesterday about Beowulf's age at this point. And he's probably at least in his 70s because this is taking place 50 years later. So that's kind of old to be fighting a dragon. It's kind of old to be engaged in any kind of battle. But yet Beowulf goes out, and there's a part of this that even says he feels like this is part of his honor, part of his glory. He wants that glory one last time of defeating the villain. But when we read the final battle, what we find out is that Beowulf, in fact, is not able to defeat the dragon on his own. So Beowulf fights the dragon, but he becomes mortally wounded in the fight, and he can't defeat the dragon. So he has one follower who comes in and helps him. In part 15, we learn about this follower. His name was Wiglaf. And he is basically a distant cousin of Beowulf, but he's a younger man. It says that he's a good soldier, that his family had been Swedish, and that Beowulf brought them over to the land of the Geats and took care of them. So he is very loyal to Beowulf, and he is very dedicated to this fight. Now, the other interesting thing that we find out is that Wiglaf, when Beowulf is fighting the dragon and losing, is actually the only person who comes up to help him. All of Beowulf's other men, these warriors that are supposed to be so brave and strong, they run. They don't help Beowulf. They run away. And Wiglaf comes to his aid. So it's only with Wiglaf's help that Beowulf is able to defeat the dragon. So the two of them together, it says in our little summary after part 15, it says, together Beowulf and the young Wiglaf killed the dragon, but Beowulf is fatally wounded. And so we know what that means, of course. You know, we probably kind of gathered that if this was his last battle, that he wasn't going to make it after this. He wants to see the monster's treasure, and Wiglaf enters the dragon's cave and finds jewels and gold and a whole amount of treasure. And that's where we pretty much stopped in the reading yesterday. So today's assignment is to go ahead and finish reading the story. You're going to read parts 16 and 17, and they're actually very short. There's not much left to the story. You can imagine that what's happening at this point is just the end of Beowulf and how people are going to respond to him dying, and that's pretty much what these two parts are about. So before we read this, though, we're going to start, because we started yesterday, the third part or third section of the story. We're going to go ahead and do some work with that last set of vocabulary, the third set of vocabulary. So before you read, I want you to take a look at our third vocabulary set in the study guide, and that's going to be on page 24 of the study guide. So let me come over here and just look at this last set of vocabulary on page 24. All right, so this is the third part of Beowulf. We've already talked about this focus activity. This was our journal topic yesterday. And then here is the vocabulary that goes along with the third section. So we have the word bolt, and that's not referring to the little dog on the cartoon. It means to literally break away from, to run away from. You have the word ori, which is kind of a weird word. It looks like hoary, but it means ancient. So that means very, very old. You have the word livid, which is actually the color, like the color of a bruise. Reproach literally means to blame. The word skulk, I think everybody should start using that word in their vocabulary and just use it in your everyday speech. We're going to skulk around, which means to move in a stealthy manner or basically to sneak around. And then everybody knows what venomous means. You know, if a snake bites somebody, that is venomous because they have venom. So this is the vocabulary for the third section. And I want you to go ahead and write your sentences. You're used to doing this by now. Write one original sentence for each word in set 3. Then you're going to read these parts that we talked about, 16 and 17. You're going to finish up the story of Beowulf. And then you've got some response and questions to answer. So the personal response on page 26 of the study guide is at the top right here. It doesn't have a number, but it's just asking about your opinion of the ending of the story. And then you have a few other questions that you're going to answer from the study guide, pages 26 and 27. So what you're going to turn into this assignment will be your sentences for vocab set 3, and then your answers to this personal response and questions 4 through 7. And today we are reading the end of the story. So tomorrow we're going to do something a little bit different, but you're finishing up the story today and you're going to learn about how everything ends.